All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to Chicago Archery to the Point. Today I'm doing a solo. It's me, Bob. Yeah, that's it. I'm doing it all by my lonesome today. I got some information I want to get through to you guys. It's the beginning of hunting season. First and foremost, I want to thank Wings of Severance for that fucking awesome intro, and my buddy Rick for putting it together. I want to just say how great Wings of Severance is. If you guys, they've been out, they're playing. If you haven't seen them, man, I just saw them at the Brower House a couple months ago, and there was a lot of good bands there. Don't get me wrong, but my buddies from Wings, they fucking killed it that night. They were just cool. Okay, you're gonna see me focusing in and out right now. That's the autofocus on the camera. I got a new camera going, which seems to be having an issue. All right, so what we're gonna talk about today is over my shoulder here. So don't worry about so much. If for those of you that are watching on the YouTube, don't worry about it so much about me fuzzing in and out. You want to look at that picture that's over my shoulder. I will fully explain all this to the people in the podcast so you can put a picture in your head while you're driving. This should be a pretty quick podcast today. I want to make it so that you can get through this. It's the beginning of hunting season in Illinois here. It started October 1st, and I've been dealing with a lot of crazy things this year that more so than I have last year. We are also going to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in the industry, and I'm making some notes as we go. So just in case I don't forget something. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about arrows. Arrows are one of the most important things, and I'm going to show you how to basically tune your bow with your arrow without having to mess with the tune of your bow. Now, remind you that when it's like when you get a gun, you bore sight it. All right. Your gun should be all set up. And I like to refer between guns and bows during the hunting season because, believe it or not, more people seem to pay attention when I use the word gun. I don't know why. But everybody's learning now that the YouTube videos that are out there, guess what? A lot of them are misleading. So I'm going to explain a little something that we do with arrows. And yes, this over my shoulder is a picture. What it is, it's a picture of paper with 6 holes in it that I shot 3 different arrows out of. All right. And I'm going to explain that. All right. So this year I used the same bow as I did last year, and I shot my arrow through it, and I was using an FMJ last year. Okay. And it was the 5mm FMJ. So you got the aluminum and the carbon, which reacts different than just a carbon. Okay. It's the same spine arrow. So this year I'm running a Easton Access 4mm. Okay. So when they do the spine of an arrow, the way they get it is to get the strength of it, or the stiffness or weakness of it is through either diameter or wall thickness. Okay. And to get that, at 28 inches at 2-pound weight in the center, what the deflection is where your spine is. I believe that's it. Okay. You can hold me to that. I think that's pretty close. To get that spine, you got to do the thickness. So obviously if they're using the FMJ and they got the aluminum, they got the carbon inside, they get that deflection. It's going to be how much carbon is going to be inside. Right. And So if you're going with a carbon arrow, and let's say it's going to be a 4 millimeter arrow outside diameter, that you're going to go with a thickness on the inside a little bit different per thick, be more thick for a 300 than it will be for a 400. Okay. Less deflection. Okay. So it's got to be stiffer. All right. So what we're looking at today, and I'm going to explain this. And so I changed the arrows. So the first thing I did is I didn't change anything because your bow has to be center and square. Those of you that are moving your rest, fucking stop. Okay. Stop moving your rest. Okay. And those of you that are moving your cams, all right, stop for right now. Okay. What you're doing is compensating for is a spine. Okay. Now, yes, sometimes things, when they're put together by humans and there's a little bit of an imperfection, unless you're at Chicago Archery, there's going to be a little bit of an imperfection. Okay. I'll let that sink in. Come on. That was funny. Fuck you. That was funny. Okay. So I make sure everything's square and center. All right. And you want everything level. All right. And that's where you start at. And then you go with your knock high or knock low. Okay. And the way you release and the way the bow cams are going. And you make sure everything's timed and everything's good. Boom. Okay. There you're starting out. Then you put your arrow in there. All right. And I like to do a bear shaft arrow, but for visual, I got veins on these. Okay. Because I just got the arrows and I just put them together. I'm drinking Angel's Envy today. Just for those you ask, those always want to know what kind of bourbon I'm drinking because it is bourbon. This thing keeps focusing. I gotta stop it. Okay. All right. So I got a new camera with autofocus. So those of you on YouTube, you're seeing me go blur. I'm like a ghost and I'm not. Okay. So what we're going to talk about. So I put the arrow in and I shot it, and it shot center for the most part. It shot pretty center. Remember, you're going to get a little craziness out of it. So if it's a little higher, low knock, don't do your knock first. Get your center set. Okay. And there's a couple ways of doing the center. You can adjust the bow by adjusting the cams, alignment to the back of the arrow. That's what they're trying to tell you a lot of times. But if you don't believe it, if you already know your bow's center and square, you might want to start looking at the arrow first. All right. Okay, I can hear it now. They're already crying on the internet. Everybody's, oh, this motherfucker. Okay. And yes, there's going to be a lot more swearing because there's nobody to look at me funny from across the table about me swearing. And that's usually why somebody's here, is to keep me in control. So that's not going to happen today. I'm going to wander off and I'm going to go crazy. All right. So the thing is, if you're everything center and square and you're just a little bit up or down with your knock, don't go crazy with your knock yet, because once you start adjusting your spine, you're going to see that arrow is the reaction of the release from the bow. All right. So you know your grip's good because you're a great fucking archer and you practice all the time. You know your release and follow through are great because YouTube told you, says it was. Okay. I want you guys to understand that once everything's perfect and you feel you're going to adjust this bow to you, okay, because not everything's perfect and you're going to adjust it to you, that if it's a little up or down, don't go crazy yet. Get that spine set to where you're going to go, if that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to adjust those cams like you can do on the Elites and the Bowtechs. Okay. They can move the cam left and right, and you can move the, with the Bowtech, with the, that's the cams. And with the Elites, you can do that cant. And then you can do those that have the yoke, the yokes on their cables. You can adjust your cam lean and get that arrow right behind it. Okay. That's what you're trying to do. But what if your spine's not right and everything's right and you're adjusting that cam? You're going to start, it takes a lot of arrows to figure that out. Well, in the old days, we didn't have all those neat little gadgets to do on our bow. We used to adjust our arrows. All right. So I look, and if you look at the picture, and I'm going to explain these first. We're going to look at, okay, here's arrow one. Arrow one, I shot through paper. with the new arrow at the same length. It's a 30-inch arrow, 300 spine, 70-pound Bowtech Reckoning 35-inch axle to axle. Okay, so it's not a crazy cam. Okay. It's the bow I like because it's very accurate. It's got a 7-inch brace height, which is superb. Okay, especially for hunting situations. Okay, it's been torque tuned and all that with the old arrows. So I put this arrow in, and the first one you're going to see, and I'm going to look at my book here. The number one, it has from the center of the arrow to the center of basically where the arrow ripped through, it has a 3/4 inch rip to the right, which means my spine is too stiff. Okay. So I'm like, well, I got to weaken the spine. I could move that cam over and get behind it, but I know everything's square with those cams. So why do I want to move the cams and rest if it's showing me basically the spine's too stiff? All right. There's two things you can do. You can move your rest. Don't do it. You can move those cams to get behind it. You can. It takes less movement. Okay. But you're compensating. This I know because they're different arrows that this spine is too stiff. It's just because it's so thick in carbon, because it's a 4mm. I went from a 5mm aluminum carbon to a 4mm carbon. Okay. So what I did is I cut 2 more arrows. I cut one 1 inch longer and one 2 inch longer. Let's see what the results were. Now I'm running 100 grain tip on here. Yep. I know the Ranch Fairy would be spinning and spitting and doing all that shit, but I shot through and through a moose, through and through bear, through and through caribou, through and through deer with 100 grain FMJ, the number one arrow that Ranch Fairy does not like. Okay. So number 2 on the picture is a hole. It is a 1/4 inch center of the arrow to center where the arrow ripped through the veins. It's a 1/4 of an inch rip to the right, which shows with a 1 inch longer arrow, I weakened the spine enough. So then I whacked out the 2 inch with 100 grain, and she's basically a bullet hole with the veins, right? Flies beautiful. Now I did this paper tuning at it's approximately from at full draw 6 to 8 feet away. Okay. So I let it get out of the bow, basically the way it's coming out of the bow. All right. And it's got very little flight. Okay. So that's the way it's coming out of the bow. All right. So I did that. So to further my observation, I decided to put a 125 grain on the front of each one of those arrows, the 30, 31, and 32 inch arrows. And those are the holes that are above. And what I ended up doing is I got what they called it was still a stiff spine to begin with, the 30 inch number 4, but it was a 1/4 of an inch less with the 125 grain. So it ended up being only 1/2 an inch rip. The number 5 was only a 3/8 inch rip. Okay. And the number 6 was an 1/8 of an inch rip the opposite way. So I weakened it too much. So basically I took the 2 inch long arrow, put the 100 grain on it, and the thing flies great. And it's right on. I mean, I shot 20 and 30 yards of my range, and this just happened just a couple days ago. And I shot 6 arrows, and then I turned around and shot 3 more at 20 and 3 more at 30, and they were right on. Man, they were beautiful. Little bit because of, the arrows a little bit lighter than the other arrows. So I was shooting a little high. I use this bow and these arrows because you get such great feedback. That is, so now the Reckoning 39 is what Paige Pierce is winning everything with in her tournament, right? And let me tell you, there's a reason. This bow gives you great feedback. and it's really great. Okay, that noise you're hearing is the new Chicago Archery ice machine that we have in the shop for refreshments. Okay. Okay. So let's just say that. Now, I was just using a regular knock, not a lighted knock on these. This is just to show you that you can tune your bow. Okay. All right. And I want you to see that you don't have to go to all that crazy and you don't have to buy a certain bow to do things. Okay. Okay. So that's a big deal. So when you first get your bow and it's first set up, it's got to be square and straight. You got to make sure that that's perfect and then it's level. Okay. That's what we call zeroing your bow. That's what you get. Then you hear all these guys, oh, did you paper tune? Did you do this? No, I'm not fucking with it, because I guarantee you my grip is different than yours. I've been shooting 48 years. Is it perfect? No, I work hard at trying to get a really good grip. I have what they call a target grip and a hunting grip. My target grip is obviously much looser because I'm using a finger sling than my hunting grip. Okay. So you got to practice with those. And when you're doing your tuning, you got to tune with those because you want your arrow to fly, not in a perfect situation, but in a hunting situation or a target situation, whatever you're setting it up for. Those of you that come to my Wednesday night league know that I like to incorporate the target and the hunting world all the time. They go back and forth. Okay. All right. And Wednesday night, 7:30 to 9 is our league night. And that's when right now we're doing the Vegas and 3D all in one in an evening. Okay. All right. So I've wandered off enough there. All right. All right. We're 15 minutes into this and I'm hoping to keep this around 30, 45 minutes. All right. So what I want you to do is you try to get your bow. You want to get it, I know we're in hunting season, people change arrows and stuff. And the reason I came up with the system is I had to do this at a shop. I brought my bow somewhere and I put my arrows in a tube and the tube got crushed. Okay. And I'll never do that again. This is back when I was traveling when I was younger. And I went to an archery shop and I asked them to do something and they did it for me. It was very good. And we ended up tuning the arrows that they had there that were very similar to mine. And I ended up being successful. I was on a pig hunt and I got arrows and broadheads and everything that I needed from them. But we had to tune my bow like this. And it only took me a few minutes. And the guy was just really appreciative that I did it in his shop. He was a newer shop owner and I had not owned a shop. I was still young, but I had a bunch of experience with, as you guys know, I put myself in situations where I got to meet some very interesting people. And I learned this and I did it in the shop and he learned something that day too. So, which it was great. So this is what I did. So now make sure always that when you paper tune your bow, that you don't that's not the end all catch all. You got to remember that you got to do your bare shaft and field tip tuning too. And then don't ever forget that you have to shoot your broadheads. Now this sounds different. Okay. Now I want everybody to understand when you buy arrows, I know in a perfect world, you want to say, oh, I got my bow. I bought a brand new bow and I just, it's zeroed and I bought, half a dozen or a dozen arrows. Now, remember, you're going to waste some arrows doing this. I wasted 2 arrows because one arrow is obviously the arrow that I want. You're going to waste some arrows tuning your bow if you do it properly. I understand people want to save some money, but don't ask me for perfection if you're not willing to do a little bit of this. You don't know the outcome unless you try it. So you have to try it. Every bow likes an arrow a little bit different for the speed and setup and the strings and, because I got new strings on this and everything else that you use to release your release method. Okay. And that's another thing that we're going to talk about tonight is the release or this afternoon or whatever the fuck it is our release method and practice with that release method. Okay. So make sure. Okay. Now I've gone over this enough. All right. I've I think I've covered the basis on this. This is just for a stiff. Now, if it's a weak spine and you have to stiffen it up, you would go in the opposite direction. So but if you've already cut your arrows to the end of your riser, you don't really want to go any farther than that with broadheads. You have to go up a spine and do this. And this is usually where, because my bow was not reacting well at 30 inches with a 340 spine or a 350 spine, because I tried two different arrow companies. The Victories were a 350 and the Eastons were a 340, and the 330 with the Eastons. I ended up going to that 300 spine, and then I had to do this. So my 300 spine with a 32-inch arrow is where it ended up being. And it looks a little crazy being out there long for a lot of people, but not me. If you look at Jesse Broadwater at Vegas, when he tunes his arrow and spine, his arrow, and does all of his tuning with his cans and everything, you'll see that his Vegas, and he's won Vegas a few times, that his arrow is really long a lot of times. So because of he's using an aluminum arrow, and that's what tuned for him. Okay. So if you go to the right spine, you can get the right weights and stuff like that. So if you want a little bit more weight, you can go up in spine because it's going to be a little thicker, and then you just cut a little bit longer. Now you got a little bit, your FOC is affected. You get better driving. And I mean, a longer arrow in flight is nicer. And if you're going to use nocks in the back, you want that longer. So I'm telling you, when you start playing with this, and don't forget to shoot with your lighted nocks also, and you will get the arrow that you want. So I didn't do that. I only use this because this is really easy. I didn't show the lighted nocks. I didn't show none of the other stuff. Okay. So when you do this and you tune your arrow properly like this, you're going to find that you don't have to tune your bow as much. And number one, don't touch your rest. When your rest is centered with your cams, that's a great place to start. If you take your rest off, you've created an angle, and that angle grows over yardage. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. So, and remember, when you move the back end, the string on the cam, that you're pointing that arrow tip in a different direction, and you may be pointing it because of the spine. So doing this spine test with your bow centered in 0, I feel is a great way to start. Okay. You can make your minor adjustments later with your cams and stuff like the Bowtech. You can move the cam, and the Elite, you're moving the whole assembly, and, you know, and the shims on the Hoyts, and the, you know, and the hats on the Matthews and stuff like that. Okay. So I think I've gone through this enough that you don't need to do that stuff all the time. Start here. Okay. So I am going to try to stop sharing the screen here and get this picture out of here. So I quit. Okay. I have no idea how to stop sharing the screen, but I'll figure it out somehow. Yep, there goes the ice machine again. God bless the ice machine. Okay. All right, let's go back to the desktop. Nope. I don't know how to fucking stop this thing from sharing anymore. So anyway, so we'll just leave it up here for right now. I don't know why it's not doing this. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about releasing and grip. Remember to make sure you practice if you're going to wear gloves on the field with your grip. You have to remember to use that grip. Okay. You should be practicing. If you shoot with a glove, you should be practicing with a glove. Your release. I want to make sure that you understand that a lot of guys, like, they practice a really good release and follow through in the range, but when they're out hunting, they just want to see if it hit. You have to keep your eye on the prize and release and hold it until it hits. Please hold it until it hits. Okay. I am still trying to get rid of this. Stupid. Oh, I just screwed something up here. Stop share. Okay. Oh, this is my background. That's what it was. I want to get rid of my background. All right. So this picture was there. Here we go. Done. We're done. Okay. So now we're back. All right. Let's get me in focus. Okay. I don't know why it's focusing like that. All right. Let's move me up here a little bit. All right. Okay. I'm going to move like this so I can look right at you. I'm mostly looking at my screen on my computer here. So you see my eyes looking down for those of you who watch the video. Those of you who don't, well, you're lucky. Don't get to see my ugly mug. All right. And you also don't get to see, I know people count how many times I drink out of the glass to see how much I'm drinking during the, you guys really got to figure out this is about archery. It's not about how much I'm drinking on this podcast. All right. Okay. So make sure that you practice that release and a good follow through, man. That's what really gets you through on those good shots. You hear about us. I mean, when you're taking down larger game, you really focus on your shot. You got to know that your process is the most important thing that you have is your process. And you got to work on what you call a target process and a hunting process. Your target process and your hunting process are very similar, almost exactly the same. But you got to remember certain things like with gloves and, releases and gloves and stuff like that. And anchors, huge with the anchors. God bless the nose button for all the you that use it, that were having problems with the kisser. If you didn't have a kisser that I like people using the kisser or the nose button because it's a definitive feel to know that you're on with your anchor, and it takes away the anxiety of missing the shot. When that kisser or nose buttons in and that you have a good release and follow through, that you were right where you were aiming. I mean, that's what practice is all about. Okay. Don't forget that you should have torque tuned your bow by now, and have it all done. That's a big deal because the stress when you're hunting is magnified and amplified and significantly larger when that animal's in front of you that you've been waiting for, especially one that you've been targeting and watching and looking and demanding, or you never saw before, and now he's standing in front of you. You're like, oh my Lord, it's the largest whatever in front of you that you've been waiting for. Okay. Okay. So, all right. That's another big part of it. The other thing is let's talk about what has been happening in the industry right now. The manufacturers have completely fucked over the retailers. And I don't want to say retailers because then you think of that stupid Shields. I'm talking about the small companies like myself. The string companies are way behind. Oh my Lord. This has been a horrible year for string companies. I've had so many strings and cables. All right. They can't help it right now. Employee problem is the number one bitch that I hear from everybody. And then the next thing is the parts. That you can say the COVID thing, but that thing's pretty much going away right now. It's employment, keeping people employed. It's the hardest thing. And then, the other thing is the reason the prices are going up is trying to keep employees. They got to pay more to their employees, to try to keep them to get things out. It's been really rough on a lot of these manufacturers, and I really don't care because they completely screwed me, getting me parts and materials. And then stuff that I've ordered in January is now coming in on October, which you buy it in January, so you have it so people can get ready for October. So if they didn't have it, they couldn't send it to me. Once they got it, they sent it to me, but it was just rough, man. We were trying to make ends meet for you all and trying to get you guys into the great, the gear that your heart was set on. And we've really, really tried. And, but the manufacturers, they've been doing what they want to sell us stuff, My favorite is Excel. When the Matthews bow came out and they really did that bow up for the Excel site. And then Excel said, you can get your first site. When my rep came in from Excel, he's like, yeah, you can order sites, but they won't come in until like the second week in September if you're lucky. So then the other manufacturers like Black Gold and CBE that we do a lot with, they stepped up and they got us the parts to fit the Matthews bows. And they actually, I'll be honest with you, they fit better. They really do. That CBE really fits that bow snug, and he has 3 positions you can move it to, not just one. And a carbon arm, or it's aluminum arm on it. It just fits really well. I enjoy it. A couple other new things that came out with the bow hitch that we have a full line in. The bow hitch holds your bow at the ready. When I say it's like it can clip onto a strap like your binocular strap or something. It's a little arm that's not in the way, that mounts underneath your quiver. So you don't have to move anything. You put it right on and use it right away. It drops right off whatever sling or a loop that you've hooked it on. And you can always have your bow ready and you're not holding it in your hand or arm, which is really cool. If you want to know more about it, you can look them up at thebowhitch.com. You can get them right here at Chicago Archery, and I mount it for you that day. Put it on, and away you go. You will love it. We have the loops, the hoops, and the slings for it. And it comes with a backpack thing. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's bowhitch.com. Check them out. Come in Chicago Archery and get them. We are a dealer in them. Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I became a dealer earlier this year. One of the first. Okay. All right. Enough bitching about the manufacturers and plugging that stuff. All right. So what else can we talk about? Let's talk about practice and targets. I've got some Blemish 18-1 Reinhardts here. Great broadhead target. If you're going to be shooting into a broadhead, I make a stand myself for my own. I can show you mine. I have some wood here that we've made a couple stands for people. If you haven't been shooting your broadheads, get out there and shoot them. I like to buy the ones with replaceable blades so you can shoot them into the target. And then when you're all done, you can pull the blades out, put new blades in it. You know how that tip's going to shoot. You can have your favorite arrow, whatever. It's a great way. Those guys that are doing the resharpening, you make sure that you resharpen those things better than a razor. They better be beautiful, because I know it's great that you want to buy one that you can resharpen, but let me tell you, if I go through an animal with an arrow and a broadhead, I don't use it again. It's not worth the $20. It's just not worth it. If it was bent or whatever, or something happened or nicked, or it's not as sharp, it's just not worth it. So I'm a big fan of fixed blades that everybody knows, and I'm a big fan of replaceable blades, which if you don't know, you know now. Okay. I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover today. It was pretty easy. I really wanted to get into that arrow tuning. I think we're going to have more. We're going to have more things coming here soon with the podcast. I try not to do products on here. I did the bow hitch today because it's nothing. There's no competition for it out there. There's really nothing that can do what the bow hitch does. So especially tree stand hunters, and got the really skittish deer like in Illinois here, that thing's going to have your bow there ready. So you just got to raise it up and release. So, all right. Well, that's pretty much it for today. We got a 30-minute podcast, and that was pretty easy. If you guys have any questions, you want to hear about something, or you want me to go over something that maybe we did in the shop that more people would like, let me know. I started this podcast because everybody likes coming in and asking me questions and talking to me about stories and this and that. And so I started this podcast and did the labor and spent the money and got it going. And it's worked out great. And I mean, you guys hear that car? You hear that? Is that ridiculous? It sounds like a little toy. Anyways, yeah, squirrel. The ADD gets going. I usually have somebody here to keep the reins in, but I got nobody today. It's hunting season, man. I'm not going to get anybody to help me today. So that's pretty much it. This is Bob from Chicago Archery. I want you guys all to enjoy your hunting season. Get in contact with me. I'm going to probably do another one here in the next couple of weeks. So they're going to come during the hunting season. We have a little bit more to talk about if we run into something. Be safe out there. Strap up when you're in your tree stand. Don't risk it. It's not worth it getting hurt over a damn deer or whatever else you're going after. Be friendly to everybody. Don't trespass. Do not trespass. Be an example for the hunting community. And remember, if you're going somewhere to hunt and they want you to register your name, like if you go into one of these government facilities, your range, like they put out like free, but yet you got to pay $15 for a permit to shoot there. It's not free anymore. And they're taking your name and they're going to be putting restrictions on it. And your name is going to be one of the first ones on the list because you registered with that. It's not free if the government's charging you to shoot there. Okay. Even for if it's a pass, they can call it whatever they want. It's not free. Okay. This is something that's going to be coming up in the near future, and I'll explain more later if those of you coming to my shop know. So be safe. Have a good hunting season. Come and see me. And if you've been a patron of my shop and you get something this year, info@chicagoarchery.com or CATOPOINT@gmail.com. It's CA to the point, Chicago Archery's to the point. That's the email. Send me some pictures of what you got and I will get them on our board. Good luck to everybody and be kind to others. Take care. Bye.